sola. Il mia sova qui il te tu quali viti il te
Hello, and welcome back to the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Ensemble Arts. I'm your host, Khadija Mbowe, a sociocultural content creator, classically trained soprano, and loving provocateur. Together, we're here to clear out dusty assumptions about concert music and explore its potential to reflect and connect our world today. The music you heard in the intro comes from Habanera, the iconic aria from Bizet's 1875 opera, Carmen. It's the entrance music for the title character, sung here by our guest today, two-time Grammy-winning mezzo-soprano Janae Bridges. Raised in Tacoma, Washington, Janae was a high school basketball star before committing to music. Her competitive spirit and innate talent made her a devoted student and ultimately an in-demand performer. In 2019, BET even described her as the Beyoncé of opera, following her debut as Nefertiti in Philip Glass's Akhenaten. Back in 2012, Janae made her Kennedy Center debut after winning the Marian Anderson Award. In February 2024, the honor came full circle when Janae joined the Philadelphia Orchestra to announce the upcoming rededication of its home inside the Kimmel Center for Performing Arts as Marian Anderson Hall. It will be the first major concert venue in the world to honor the late performer and trailblazer. As you might imagine, it's all been a bit surreal.
Honestly, I never imagined any of this. I just have been going with God, and going with like this gift and really respecting it, putting respect on this thing that I love so much. And, as someone that does attempt to put their very best effort out there and who has sacrificed so much for this craft, it takes a lot of sacrifice, just like anything, I think, that demands greatness. It's nice to be recognized. It really is.
Can you give me 3 words that describe your artistic style?
Oh, wow. I think classic, ambitious, inviting. Yeah. Classic.
Those are so good.
Thank you. I mean, I really feel that about myself because I sing a lot of like traditional works as we know it, but then also I sing a lot of new music and I create. And so I feel like ambition, like there are more words that I want to give, but yes, those are the 3.
Classic, ambitious, and you said inviting was the last one, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to talk a bit about your inspirations then to see if maybe those singers are where you get those 3 major artistic influences, performance styles from. Can you talk about a few of your influences that bring up those words when you think of them?
Sure. It's so funny because a lot of my influences aren't classical musicians. But a lot of them are. So I'll name a few. Definitely Whitney Houston is one. I admire, obviously, the voice, just the voice in itself. For me, there is no greater voice, and the passion that is behind the voice, it's just so raw and pure and unveiled in a way. And it just hits you, like it just hits you, your heart, and your soul. So I always, when I think about communicating my art and my music and my voice, like I think of Whitney and I try to, channel her. Stevie Wonder, he is just brilliant. his musicianship, is just something that I really feel is unparalleled. And I draw a lot of my inspiration from him because there are no limits. He's done everything. And I just am really inspired by that, by him. Leontine Price, the seriousness that she took, over her instrument is something that always, I have to remind myself, like, if I want to be great, I'm going to channel Leontine Price. And whenever I hear any recording of her or see any clip of her, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Her and Beyonce, I'm just like, to me, they are at the pedestal in terms of performance and real care for the craft. And then, of course, Marian Anderson, she's the foundation for me. I just feel like she walked out on stage and she said, here I am, and you had no choice but to receive that gorgeous gift and presence and feeling that she transfixed the world with and changed the world with and opened so many minds and hearts and broke down so many barriers. I think I read once that she never really tried to do that necessarily, but she just did because of who she was. Rather, she didn't focus on that. And I understand that because it's exhausting, to have to focus on carrying the load, ultimately making people better. Like that's not anybody's job, in my opinion. But it's possible if you are really just like living out your purpose and your gifts. I really think that's what she did. And it hit hearts deeply. So those are just a few. That was a very long-winded answer.
I mean, I'm asking a singer their favorite voices. It's going to be a long-winded answer. But also, I appreciate how much care you took with thinking about those people and specifically why you appreciate them so much. And it makes sense the way you talk about singing, that if you have that kind of mindset, your voice will be all the things you describe, but especially inviting. And so, speaking, though, of Marian Anderson, because she's definitely a very big inspiration for me as well, I wanted to ask you if you remember when you first heard her sing and what that was like for you, if you do remember.
I do remember when I was a student at Manhattan School of Music in the library, she had a Lieder album and Brahms. I just remember hearing her sing a bunch of Brahms songs, and I was like, whoa. The sound is a little bit distorted, always, just because of the times in which they were recorded, but I could still feel the power and depth of her instrument and her communication, So I remember just being in the Manhattan School of Music library, listening to her singing Brahms. And because of that, I went down the rabbit hole with Brahms and Lieder in general. I love German Lied. So whenever I sing a recital, I definitely, program it with German art songs. And that's because of Marian Anderson. So yeah, that was the first time. And it was very, very, very impactful for me.
I bet, because especially university, how old were you then? You were, if you don't mind me asking.
18, 19.
Wow, okay. And had you been singing before as in this style of music?
So classical singing came a bit later for me. I essentially started right before I went to Manhattan School of Music. Yeah, it's not that long of a story. Long story short, I was an athlete and I had to, a coach ultimately forced me to choose between basketball and singing through a very unfortunate circumstance. It was really traumatic and dramatic at the time, where we had a basketball game, I had a choir rehearsal, and they were the same day. He said that I could attend the choir rehearsal as long as I got to the game on time to, suit up and play. So finished the rehearsal. My mom drove me like 2 hours up north for this game. It was a very important game too. And I got there in time, got my gear on, suited up, and went to warm up. And he sat me on the bench. And I was like, Coach, what are you doing? I got to warm up with my team, I'm ready. And he sat me on the bench. The game started. 1 quarter went by, 2 quarters went by. It was halftime. I was still on that bench. And I was a captain. So I was just like so upset. I was in tears. My mother was livid. And he yelled at me in front of the whole stadium. And I walked out. And that was the last day that I played competitive basketball. And I was so upset. And I completely just like turned all of my efforts towards singing. Because I had been in the choir in high school. So my choir teacher always said, you have a natural gift. Maybe you should start studying privately. And so that incident really kind of made me pivot to start taking singing, a bit more seriously. So this was my junior year, the end of my junior year, I think. And so then I started studying with a private teacher, and I fell in love with it. And I took the crazy risk of auditioning for conservatories with like very little training. And I got into all of them. So yeah, I turned down my basketball scholarships and I ended up going to Manhattan School of Music for my undergraduate degree. And yeah, I mean, I was really green. I remember that. I remember being so nervous because my classmates had been studying for years. And I was brand new, so it was scary. But the athlete in me, the competitive spirit, was like, okay, I'm not okay with not being on top. So I worked really, really hard, and New York was my playground, So coming from Seattle all the way across country to New York as an 18-year-old, I had no choice but to just dive in, It was all a huge shift and a very scary, yet it felt like the right thing to do. So I did it. And I've always been that way, big on feeling. So in hindsight, it's all, that was supposed to happen. And I'm grateful for that silly coach who called himself teaching me a lesson. I do believe everything happens for a reason.
What does it feel like coming full circle in this moment from discovering Marian Anderson to singing, to singing in a hall named after her? And what is the importance of naming halls after legends like this?
Whew, it's really full circle. So I will also mention that I went to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, where Queen Marian Anderson is from. And having gone to graduate school in Philadelphia, stepped foot in her home many times, sung concerts in her home, and then being a recipient of the Marian Anderson Award, I feel like she has always been with me. Always. Since I started singing and discovered this voice in me, I feel like she is me. I mean, like she's a part of me. So this moment it's quite surreal, actually, because I've always imagined, like, whenever I step on stage, I think of her. I think of her, and I think of many other Black opera singers, women opera singers that have come before me, but particularly Marian Anderson, because she is the one that set the tone and paved the way. I'm just so grateful, and I'm proud of this moment and of Philadelphia realizing the importance of naming this hall after her, because without her, certainly classical music would be so much different. She was such a pioneer and influenced so many, not just Black, everybody. So it's only appropriate that this hall is renamed after her. And I think it's important to keep these names, her name, alive, well and alive. So to have her name in an institution where we enter, like, I just feel like we are entering an elevated experience, and it's going to have a depth And it's deep now, but I know that, once we enter into the Marian Anderson Hall, there's going to be a reverence that comes along with that. And it's really just going to, I think, elevate the music making, the music receiving, hopefully continue to just like open minds and hearts, which is what she did. It's amazing. I'm just like, yes, finally, someone got it.
In 2020, Janae emerged as a leader as classical music shifted towards conversations of inclusion and racial justice. She proposed and led a highly successful panel on race and inequality in her art form with the Los Angeles Opera, which the New York Times called, quote, a conversation of striking scope and candor. Since then, Janae has been named one of the Kennedy Center's next 50 cultural leaders, was featured in the All Stars campaign for Converse Shoes Breaking Down Barriers collection, and appeared on the Digital Sound Stage series with the Los Angeles Philharmonic under Gustavo Dudamel. Here's an excerpt of her singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands from that series.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. She's got the whole world in her hands. She's got the whole world in her hands. He's got the
I want to get back to what you were saying about sacrifice, because I think something that folks maybe don't even realize about the life of an opera singer is how much you travel and how much time that takes away from you being not even just in spaces with like your loved ones, but still, because you're always going. How many days out of the year, if you even know, do you your face?
Oh, gosh. So I don't know the exact amount of days. However, I will say it's about 75% of the year. Yeah, it's been more. It varies year to year. This is the first year in my whole career where I have been able to be in my home for like 5 months. Consecutive months. Yeah, because I'm singing in New York all spring, which is so nice. Like I can go to bed in my bed and wake up in my bed and in my space and not have to pay extra rent, because as opera singers, we pay to live on the road. It's horrible.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, wait.
So, yeah. Yeah, I hate that I even have to say it, but it's true. So it's really stressful being on the road. It's very stressful. Financially, emotionally, it can be. I now have a system in place, though, in terms of like making home everywhere I sing, because that's what you have to do when I'm in a country or a city for 2 months or more. Sometimes you got to make it feel like home. So I have my rituals, and I actually like to travel, so that helps. I can't imagine not liking to travel. I will say that I don't like it as much as I used to. And I think that just comes with like age. But generally speaking, like I love experiencing new cultures and new environments and people and food. And I like flying too. So it's just, overall, it's nice for me. But being home right now is great. And, it's just helping me focus on other aspects of my life that are sometimes neglected when you're on the road, just because there's no real settling, if that makes sense.
How do you keep, I guess, like vocal hygiene, so to speak? Because you've talked a lot about respecting your instrument. And so how does that work when you're always on the go?
So with all this sickness going around, especially it's just so difficult. But me personally, I drink a lot of water. I sleep 8 hours every night. I work out. I have humidifiers going everywhere. I think I have a humidifier in like 10 different countries because I buy them and then I leave them. But thankfully, I make friends with someone in the country or city and I leave them with them. And then I come back and I'm like, hey, I need my humidifier. So yeah, a lot of humidity. And I've become very structured. And that kind of goes against my nature because I'm an Aquarius. But and I'm really an Aquarius.
Y'all, I need to, for the audience, Aquariuses, unfortunately, are known as the weirdos of the astrology sign. No offense.
But everybody does, everyone loves us, but yes.
Aquariuses also say that.
It's true. No, we are definitely we're an air sign, so we kind of dance to the beat of our own drum, and that doesn't vibe with everyone. But I will say that there have been some structures I've put in place that really help my life.
Well, okay. So do you have any advice for some of us other, not just air signs, but, just folks that are artists requiring help with structure? Asking for a friend, of course.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, I started this whole structure thing by literally writing down what I need to do so that I don't have an email sitting in my box for like 2 months. So yeah, I think just like writing things down. For me, I have little things that I do that are kind of ritualistic that help. Like I have to make my bed every morning. I have to have, my cup of hot water, lemon, and honey first thing before I eat anything. That I do my whole pampering of the skin and all of that. And this is all before I look at my phone. So when people don't hear from me, my manager, publicist, that's why, because I'm not ready for them. And it'll be okay. Like, yeah, I think it's really important for artists to not feel like they owe anybody anything. And that obviously has come, I have developed that, I'll say, because as a young, eager, also like sometimes struggling artist, you just got to do what you got to do, and you feel like you have to answer this and put yourself out there in this way. And a lot of times you do, but I think if I were to tell my younger self that I'm not in the people-pleasing business, I just would have had less anxiety.
What do you think, or what did success look like for you initially when you were first starting out your career, when you're maybe getting gigs, maybe not getting as many, versus post-Grammy Janae?
I mean, I think success for me was just getting a job, Like there are a lot of singers out there. Jobs are limited. Well, the jobs that I wanted were limited. Now, post-Grammy, and not even post-Grammy, it is post-Grammy, but also post 2020, I just feel like yes, I have worked for where I am right now, but also I don't have to wait on somebody to give me a job. I'm creative. We're creative. We can create. And that's something that COVID could never take away. Racism can never take away. So I will say that post-Grammy, my outlook on creating is just different. It's expanded. And I feel more powerful.
I just have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
Firstly, I wanted to ask you, because in 2020, you had done a panel kind of through LA Opera with them, in collaboration. And now it's 2024. we've had a bit of time, not a lot of time, but a bit of time. Have you felt like there has been actual progress and change in this industry since you had that panel discussion? Or has it been a little like, or it can be both, it's a spectrum, but.
It's definitely both. My first inclination is to say yes, because I have noticed and been a part of change, for the better. I can now say that I've been directed by a Black director. I've been conducted by a Black conductor. This was not the case pre-conversation, pre-LA Opera. And obviously, this is never-ending work that needs to be done. I will say, though, that conversation, I didn't realize the impact it would have. But I'm grateful and hopeful because I do feel that there's been progress, There have been stories that I've told that I never imagined would be on an operatic stage. Now, within those stories, I do feel like, it's a start. It definitely is a start. I personally don't want any more, I shouldn't say any more, but I don't want any more Black trauma on stage. It's a lot. We live it every day. And I don't need to live it on stage as well. That's just me. There are a lot of stories that can be told, and there are also fiction stories that can be made up. It doesn't have to be, something that comes from our life, everyday life. But I love that there are stories being told. Don't misunderstand me. But I also feel like it has really just opened people's eyes and ears and catapulted a bigger conversation, even like the Asian Opera Alliance. That was a direct effect of that conversation, and that was something that also needed to be done. So, yes, I think there has been change, and there needs to continue to be change and work towards equity and inclusion, which is not ticking off boxes, it's, really doing the work.
My last question, and this is a question that has nothing to do with music, but can if you want it to. It's just something I love to ask people. It's called the Cataclysm sentence, which is basically, I know, right? If all the humans in the world were to be wiped out because of some giant cataclysm that happened, some catastrophic event, and there was a new batch of human beings taking over the earth, what piece of advice would you give them? It's a lot, but yeah, I know.
That's a lot. That's a really great question. Focus on loving yourself. I truly believe that if we as individual humans really did the work on delving into loving ourselves, then it would just be such a different place. I think.
I love that. Well, Janae, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I know they got you running around everywhere, but I really appreciate it.
So very grateful to be a part of this podcast, and thank you for your amazing questions. Really, really insightful. Thank you.
The love is so mutual. Thank you again to Janae for sharing a bit of her story with us. And thanks so much to you for listening to the Here Together podcast from the Philadelphia Orchestra and Ensemble Arts. I'm Khadija Mbowe, and I'll see you back here next month for our final episode. Talk soon.